Hello, and welcome to Code and Pixels with Kelly and Adekunle.
In today's episode, we'll be catching up and sharing insights on 2026. So, for those who know, I'm kind of contracted for Grammarly, so we now are superhuman. So it was a big push to get all the things ready. I think it was for back to school season or whatnot. So it was like a lot of things happening in the background, and a case where it's like I was kind of hesitant about AI, but I used it for a lot of the stuff because I was like, I ain't got time for this stuff, and it was kind of helpful. And I think that's one thing that kind of changed my perspective about, how we work, especially working on design systems, tooling, and what's going to happen in the new year. So, but yeah, it was very eventful. Learned a lot, and um, I'm glad it's over. But I feel like the real work is going to happen this year too. So, yeah.
That's how I always feel. All the stuff before that wasn't real. It was just a fever dream of productivity.
Oh yeah, and I think that's the case where it's like you're like, oh yeah, but we're getting a lot of stuff done. We kind of planning and whatnot, and then once things happen, it goes out the window, and you're like, you know what? Let's just kind of hack this thing together and whatnot. And it's always surprising, especially when you work on systems where you think everything's on fire, but then people are like, oh yeah, it works good, everything's good. Yeah, I love it, and I'm like, really? This? Okay, I'll take it.
Well, that's cool. The rebrand sounds awesome. So it's called Superhuman.
Yeah, so Superhumans are the umbrella company, and then we also have Grammarly because Grammarly acquired two companies, Superhuman and Coder. It's weird. People ask me the question. I was like, wait, why are they Superhuman if Grammarly acquired? I don't know. I'm not the CEO or management, but I feel like um yeah, it's a huge change, and now we have a system that's going to be supporting three products, and I think that's where the the real work begins, especially for design systems, because we're supporting one product. Like, oh yeah, it's just easy. But when it's like three products and they have all their ways of doing things, different tech stacks, and you kind of be like, okay, like where do you even start first? But I think the approach is like we starting with like baby steps, and we know that not everyone's gonna be happy at first, but it's like process. You just kind of people gonna hate it at first, but they're gonna get used to it, and they're like, oh, you know what? I like it. So yeah.
Yeah, I always think that whenever there's a new logo, a new redesign that comes out, everyone's like, oh, this is terrible. And then later on they go, so bad.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's the case with any of the stuff. It's kind of the same thing with like new tools and whatnot. And I'm like, man, I hate this tool, but I'm like, no, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. So
So I was using VS Code with Copilot, and it was pretty good. And I was reading like, oh, you gotta try a cursor. I'm like, why? Like, I think I'm doing okay. Like this is going all right. I tried cursor, and I went, man, what was I doing before? Because just being able to have access to all my repos, like it knows it's an all-seeing AI. I can just tell it to, hey, update all my repos, and it just does it. And I couldn't believe the first time that it happened. I was like, I don't trust you. Like, should I trust you? Should I allow? And so I clicked, sure, go for it. And then it just updated everything. It was kind of scary, but also surprisingly good user experience.
I was kind of overwhelmed when I first used it. But I'm more of a cloud code person, because it's terminal, but Um, you don't think it's too overwhelming? Like, is it just like,
So it has hijacked a few branches, and then a few hallucinations, which I don't like. But I think I just need to have it because you can create rules, and I have not done that because I'm lazy. But I need to like create rules to be like, hey, don't like assume and make things up because it will make things up if you just let it go full control.
oh yeah, and that's what I've learned. And again, I've kind of gotten deeper into the whole AI world, and people like you just kind of have to treat it like an intern, like be very explicit, because if you don't, then we're like, hey, yeah, like especially with components, it's like yeah, so I used this component. I was like, "Yo, where did you get that component? Like, where do you get this from?" Like, so, yeah, I'm realizing, like, especially this the more I use it, like, having the right, uh, guardrails in place.
Yeah, because it'll just make up libraries. Is this real or is this something you made up? And you go, "Oh, you're absolutely right."
I love it
Like,
when it does that, when it's like, when you say it's wrong, like, "You know what? That's correct. Good catch." And I'm like, "Wait, why is that every time you that's your first, like."
thanks for keeping me in check. So I actually haven't been working on design system stuff or branding, but I have been working on documentation, specifically the infrastructure of how docs are generated in our both our open source and our internal repos, which has been really eye-opening. So just trying to think through, okay, how do I generate a code block that represents multiple platforms? Like, how do I do that? And some of those decisions come down to, are we using markdown files? Are we using MDX? Are we using something else that gets converted into a format? And I think a lot of that work is really interesting because it is about how people work. So it's not just all technical, it's about process and maintenance and how do we update things and how do open source contributors update documentation.
I'm a big fan of Markdown, especially MDX, because the whole idea of being able to add code blocks in there, especially like if I'm writing documentation, I'm like, oh, cool. I could add like a React component and all this other stuff. I think that's where it's like, I really love it. And it makes it where the documentation is like real life breathing aspect of things. I also agree. Like I've kind of gone back and forth of like where should like most of the documentation live. Even for me, like especially if I'm writing anything like in the code base, the comments are mostly there to kind of communicate the why. Because I even the stuff I write, I was like, wait, why is this here? And I'm like trying to think, I'm like, what's the reason of? So I think for me, like not only for the future self of me, but also like anyone that's new, like, all right, like why are we doing this? But I think there's always need to be like a higher level.
I will say I hate the amount of comments that AI leaves. I saw a meme where it was like before, like in back in like before AI, it was like, oh, comments in the code, great. And now it's like, oh, comments in the code, oh no. Yes. They get pretty verbose. So you got practically an essay in
Oh yeah.
comment form sometimes.
And I think that's the thing. I was like, there's an art where it's like you want to have something, but you want to be too much. And even I had something where I was like, I wrote like the first draft of it and I let AI write the rest. Kid you not, there's more comments than the actual code itself. And I was like, ain't nobody gonna read like who's gonna read like an essay about like, like the function. And again, I think it's important, but you have to keep in mind that like people's attention span is like people are not gonna read the code or read the comments if it's like too long. So I think that's the kind of the idea where it's like find that out that sweet spot. And then obviously you know that like AI wrote most of it because you have like all these annotations and diagram. Like literally, it was given a diagram of like the tool, and I was like, this doesn't need to be in it. This actually needs to be in the README because it's like who's gonna be like, "Well, yeah, like this is how it works. Like no, so you got to be definitely be careful with that.
The worst is when it updates the comment that says, now it does this. I'm like, no, like don't tattle on me. Don't expose me.
Oh yeah, it's that's
It
why I
regurgitates like the prompt I told it. Like, no, stop it.
yeah, I remember there was some talk I went to where it's like you have to guide it, but then you're basically responsible for any code that comes out of it. So I make sure to review it, and again, I make some changes when necessary, especially if it's like they make something too complex or they try to do too many like they're like, oh yeah, I patched for this scenario, and I was like, no one asked you.
I do like that it's helped a lot when needing to do something in a different language. For example, I'm currently in the process of converting Maven repos over to Bazel. And I don't know much about Maven. I don't know much about Bazel, but I do know enough software engineering concepts and the goal of what we're trying to get to be able to make those updates. And I think that's super powerful because before you'd have to spend months and become specialized. I think it's taken a lot of specialization out and kind of open the doors to, as long as you have good critical thinking and you have clear expectations, I think that's really the driver of your success now. And moving forward into 2026, it's only going to become more about how good are you at explaining things and knowing what needs to be delivered to be successful.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I feel like things are changing, and I'm like wondering your thoughts about like what is the new expectations like on engineers today? Because I feel like in the past, even 12 months, 18 months ago, was totally different. I kind of feel like we're we're kind of going more where we're doing less of the actual writing code, but more of like architecture, and this is where system design and critical thinking comes to play in this like new AI world.
I think from a design engineering standpoint, like how do you make sure that you have the right guardrails in place? Like how do you know what areas are lacking almost? Because in an ideal setup, you have all of your properties or a config that is specific to whatever you're trying to generate, whether that is design system components or your variants or how things are hooked up. And I think having a better understanding of how those centralized items are leveraged in products are going to be huge.
Yeah, I agree. That I think the whole aspect of understanding how people are using it and getting more insights, because I think before like we'll have like someone a human do that, but now I feel like all that is could be generated by AI, even the insights. You'd be like, all right, cool. Like, can you tell me, like, based on the last time we talked about, like, all right, how our, X product is doing, like, using the system, and what are some of the things we can improve? I feel like that's where it's like, that's like the magic. Cause I think now it's like, they're gonna basically have this insights based on people's behaviors. And I think that's probably like, the more important thing. And I feel like, especially if you talk about, design engineering, our roles are expanding. And now we're also like not only creating tools for people, but also for the AI.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, I think that's a wrap.
Cool, cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for the first episode of 2026, and we'll see you later. We want to thank you for tuning into this episode. For more content, feel free to explore our previous episodes on codeandpixels.fm. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to connect with us on social media at Code and Pixels FM. Y'all have a great day.